After the Warriors broke our hearts last night in person, live at the Chase Center, losing on a Sadiq Bey three-pointer lucky shot with 1 second left. We are here to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in a second, though. First, I want to talk about Steph Curry's return, because the whole reason why this current homestand has been such a blessing is because we know that soon enough we're going to get Steph back, and then that just makes the team so much better. So I think yesterday Anthony Slater had tweeted a Steve Kerr comment about the San Antonio Spurs game where they're trying to break the record for attendance for a regular season game. Are you like, obviously we're all excited to get Steph back because he just makes the engine go. But what do you think about that date rather than like a home game or trying to shoehorn him in to this homestand? Because it sounds like he's okay, but I don't know. This date is circled for whatever reason. So what do you think about that?
Um, I think that I would want him to comfortably come back. And if that's the date that's like the earliest and most comfortable, like that he's not rushing any type of rehab, then I think that's the goal here. And it's not that he's doing rehab. I'm sure he's just like slowly healing because there wasn't surgery. But if that's the date, then I mean there is some questions about, does Adam Silver really want him there because of this specific game that the cruddy Spurs are trying to break the record? I don't know, but as long as he's not rushed, because I think that this, even like a game like the Spurs, like even though they're at home with this sellout crowd, apparently, like maybe at some point it's going to sell out. Like I'm sure the Warriors are still heavily favored in that game, so I wouldn't be too pressed about rushing him back for one of those. But again, if he is good to go, then I'm with it.
Okay, so the way that the schedule breaks out, so they played last night. We'll talk about that game in a little bit. Then they play Saturday. Then they play Tuesday. Those are the last two home games on this trip. Tuesday against the Suns, and Devin Booker will not be in that game. So Klay may actually not be so mad that game. And then Friday against the Spurs is this like sort of circled date. And then they go Friday and Sunday against the Bulls in Chicago, and then on the road again Monday. So he will probably miss one of the, I would imagine he misses the Wizards game, which is Monday, so that he doesn't play the back-to-back games. And maybe they stagger that with some of the other guys who, like Klay, may not play the back-to-back. Do you want Steph and Klay to not play the same game? Or do you want to split them? You could sort of figure out how to do that. But then after that, they have a nice little break, and then they go Celtics Thursday night. I imagine that is the TNT game. The rematch of the Warriors humbling the Celtics on the first ABC game this year. So the schedule breaks nicely with the exception of that one back-to-back, so you can sort of ease him in nicely. This I guess Tuesday, maybe if the last game of the homestand was like Thursday or Wednesday, maybe he could have played instead, but Tuesday seems just like a conservative time to just let's give him one more game and then he'll be
Yeah,
back on that Friday.
yeah, and Wiggins as well. They might, I don't know if he plays that back to back either. So he's another one that we're ready to return, because he didn't even play against that. The last game he played was the game before that first Boston game.
That's
That feels
right.
forever ago.
And so I would imagine that Wiggins plays in at least one of these next two home games. But again, the schedule breaks pretty nicely because you have that break. They play Saturday, Tuesday, Friday, so there's plenty of rest games in between there. So hopefully this continues to allow them to get healthy, and also with Wiseman and Kuminga as well. Those guys are also injured. But I had a sort of a bigger thought about this, which is, so what is their current record? 20-19?
Or 20-20.
Well, I'll figure that out here in a second.
I should look too.
It's 20-19.
Okay.
So last year they started off super hot, right? They were just on fire. They had that great start. And then for like the second half of the season, they're pretty much like a 500 team. And I kind of wonder if that changes this year, where they're the 500 team in the first half, and with a little bit of runway here, maybe it's not, maybe it's post All-Star break where they kind of then make that second run. Because I think getting everybody healthy, what was good about Steph being out, the positive of the whole thing is just that they had to sort of figure out how to score without him. And so that made Klay step up. Jordan has stepped up in games. And just then, even before that, even before Steph got hurt, they were kind of figuring out this the secondary lineup. And it seems like those things are getting so much better. So by the time Steph gets back, by the time Wiggins gets back, by the time Kuminga gets back, by the time Wiseman gets back, maybe
JaMychal Green hater.
Well, JaMychal, we'll see about JaMychal. but it seems like they should like really get back, and the team should be way better. Now, the one thing that I wonder though is Draymond's kind of hobbling, and I wonder if when they get Steph and Steph and Wiggins back, I also forgot Andre. Maybe Draymond gets some time to rest, because he looks like he's hobbling with the foot or the whatever the issue is that he has.
Yeah, and speaking of Andre, I just watched that Abbott Elementary where he was. It literally just like an hour ago that he was in it. That was pretty good.
In the episode?
Yeah, he's in the episode.
Oh, okay.
He's a lot of like 2 speaking lines, but they were great. I was gonna say though, like Stephen Curry getting hurt sucks, and it felt like just the knife in the heart right there for how they were performing away, and it felt like, can they even win a home game even though they've been so good at home without Steph? And they've been proving that thought I had wrong. And again, like Steph going down sucks, but it's almost been like, Jordan Poole's gotten to get the reps and the confidence being the guy. Klay has been able to step in and find his rhythm being the guy without Steph. And not to say Steph hampers any of that stuff, but I think that him not being there made other guys step up more into their potential, more into what they should be than say if he was healthy during this stretch. So I'm excited to see what the team looks like when Steph gets back, because I'm kind of sick and tired of Jordan Poole in the clutch. But I hope we can keep up the Poole productivity, the Klay productivity, and then obviously bringing back in Wiggins. How does Kuminga look with the group fully healthy? Because Kuminga's been awesome when Steph has been down. And even like Wiseman, just plug and play a couple times. Like that was fun too. And then our guy Patrick Baldwin Jr. has been great. Has been for what we could expect from a rookie that, has basically missed his entire senior year of high school and college. So I think that's all things to look forward to. And then you start talking about the DiVincenzo's, how he's found himself as kind of like a defensive guy in this stretch as well. Like it's all fun. Ty Jerome, Anthony Lamb, start naming the guys. They've all stepped up. So I'm excited to see what happens when they don't have to step up.
Okay, I haven't listened to the entire interview yet, but Joe Lacob was on with Tim Kawakami recently. And Lacob, ever the confident guy, right? As far as what he's been able to do with this team. He said that at the beginning of the season, he thought the roster that they had put together for this year was the most talented up and down 1 through 14 or whatever that is. And then Tim goes, well, what about Kevin Durant? He's like, yeah. Top heavy, that team was better. But he said 1 through 12 from a talent perspective, they're better. And I started to think about that. And so if we name off the top 12, it is a good top 12, but the problem is that talent doesn't necessarily equal quality of play. So that may be his out there, in that, yeah, you have a Jonathan Kuminga. He is way more talented than Damian Lee, but does that mean he's playing as well as Damian Lee? That's arguable. Damian Lee's a little bit more of I guess a glue guy and someone you're less worried about turning the ball over. But Kuminga brings his positives too, with his emotion and passion and energy and all that. So, but you would say, yeah, Jonathan Kuminga is still more talented than Damian Lee. but that doesn't mean that he's better in the role playing on the Warriors. You could say Moses Moody is more talented than trying to think of Warriors of
Well, I feel like
yesteryear.
Moses Moody is almost the better comparison there because I would say he's more talented than all of the back end bench guys, maybe even in the league. And there's right there quality. Talent doesn't totally equal quality because he's having a tough stretch. But if you look at the talent, a guy who could shoot the ball like him, who has sneaky athleticism and can defend like that, technically that sounds like a great person to have as like your 10th guy. But he's, not been the greatest this year.
So if we go Steph, Klay, Wiggins, Draymond, Looney, that's your starting five. And that is a very, very good starting five. It is a starting five.
It's a playoff starting five.
That won you a title last year,
Yep.
right? That's the starting five. Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, DiVincenzo. And then it gets a little weird because you could go Moody.
You can go two-way.
You could go Ty Jerome. You could go Anthony Lamb. You could go Andre Iguodala. And now we did see him in his warm-up gear last night. He was like in the huddle before the game in his warm-up gear, but he did not come to the court for the beginning of the game. He then went back and got in his normal clothes and he hung out with Steph in the tunnel watching. You could also go Wiseman. You could go Jermichael Green. So it feels like that top 8 is kind of locked in. And it's like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. The last 6 or so, those guys seems to be a little bit interchangeable based on how the rest of the season goes. I don't know if I would consider a lineup or a roster with Anthony Lamb and Ty Jerome on it to be like the most, you could go back to the first team that won the championship. Like that was pretty stacked roster talent wise. So interesting that he would think that. But it is, I mean, there are good players now. It's part of the coaching staff, their ability to put those guys together. And it sounds like there was a comment that he said in the interview with Tim where he goes, yeah, for some reason, they all had to play together. I was like, what does that mean? He meant the young guys were on that second unit together. He was like, yeah, for some reason they were all playing together. I was like, that's kind of an interesting. Maybe he didn't agree with what they were trying to do with that second unit there. But I mean, at the end of the season, though, is what he said. At the end of the season, we will have, we should be locked in. So I'm giving him till the end of the season because I sort of agree with the idea that, what you said earlier, that Steph being out gave them some ability. And Jordan's not going to have to take those shots. He's not going to have to. If Steph's on the court, Jordan becomes the guy who is probably going to be wide open in the corner. Though maybe,
and I mean, you could even, the thing is like you could still give the ball to Jordan and use Steph and Klay as decoys, and that might make it like way easier for him. Again, I want Steph shooting the ball and Klay shooting the ball at the last possession. But if there's a possession like that again, where we saw last night, where Poole trips over himself and Alec Burks gets the steal, if Steph and Klay are there, if Wiggins is there, like it might just be easier. Even though that was a 1-on-1, like he just slipped type of deal. But maybe the anxiousness and the nerves, he was supposed to take that shot and he just woofed it. But
why does he slip so much, by the way? This dude slips all the time.
Because when he dribbles, he's not like standing up and down. He's always moving his body and more chances to slip.
I don't know, man.
The Klay's never going to slip. Klay's in the perfect triple threat stance at like every given moment of the game.
What shoes is Jordan wearing?
No, we do need to check on that. I don't know what shoes he's wearing.
He may have to start wearing some
Steph's.
Yeah, you may have to start wearing some Under Armour Steph Curry's.
Steph slips. Antas. He needs some Antas.
Does Steph slip that much?
Steph's gotten a few ankle and ankle injuries since those shoes came out. I don't know. Klay's gotten 2 injuries, and it's 100% not because of the shoes.
Okay.
Give him some Antas. Wait. To Joe Lagup's point, though, if you really do look at, like, I think I'm kind of with him on the talent perspective. I think the other rosters were talented, but like kind of fit more together with the Barbosas, the Livingston.
Yeah, who's the Barbosa on this team?
Barbosa was like kind of like the high energy guy. It's like Kuminga, right?
Yeah, but Barbosa was like a bucket getter, man.
Yeah, he was. I mean, there's like shades you could put into different players. Like DiVincenzo's kind of the Gary Payton, but he kind of has like a really nice offense to him, less defense. I said Kuminga was the Gary Payton of this year's team, but you could pick different qualities of players and say he was this of Barbosa, and so was this guy this of Barbosa that. So, but yeah, in the KD teams, very top heavy, but getting KD meant you had to sacrifice a lot in roster quality. They had to bring JaVale McGee, who was on the brink of his extinction in his career, and that obviously hit well for them. But a lot of those guys that they had on those KD teams, when you looked at them before going into the year, you're like, I don't really know. But when you play with like the two best players in the entire league, everything gets easier. So
all right, I'm gonna give you some names from the 73 win team. Would you take Ian Clark or Ty Jerome?
Ty Jerome.
I think I'd take Ian Clark.
Okay, let's think. I'd take Wiggins over Harry B.
Okay, well, I'm talking about the depth part of it. Like the starting lineups are that starting lineup 2016 is probably leans towards that team.
But that's kind of like where I'm coming from here is that I see that when you look at that 2016 depth from a player versus player perspective, like I feel like this year's team I would take a lot of guys from this year's team, but when I think of trying to fit a role, trying to play within a role, like I might take a lot of the 2016 guys because like I think Kuminga is more talented than any of the guy they had on that bench in 2016.
Okay, you're about to eat your words here. Okay. Andre Iguodala, who was the finals MVP the season before, or Jordan Poole?
Iguodala.
You paused a little bit too long for that one. Okay. S. Sean Livingston, who the last time we saw him was in Santa Cruz watching Kuminga and Moody last year.
Yep.
Do you go S. or do you go Kuminga?
I go Sean Livingston if I want to not pull my hair out of my head, because he was just such a solid backup point guard that you could put in there and not have to really worry. He's just going to do his thing, drive into the lane and just couple dribbles and fade away in the key. Kuminga is more talented. I don't know if Sean Livingston at his peak. I didn't get to watch as much Sean Livingston. I know he's kind of hurt with that crazy injury, but Kuminga to me has more talent than Livingston. I'd want Livingston for that team though.
Okay, I want Livingston too. Okay, here's where it gets probably leans toward this year's team, because you had guys who were getting minutes. You had Festus. Do you take 2016 Festus over Wiseman? Probably. But you also had guys like James Michael McAdoo. You probably take Wiseman over James Michael.
I think I'd take every single player on this team over James Michael McAdoo, even Lamb. I hated McAdoo. And then wasn't there that thing in the 2016 finals with Verjao and Festus, and they kind of sucked?
Well, remember LeBron kept calling pick and roll towards Festus' side, and Steve Kerr couldn't get him out fast enough, and they lost the lead. And then you have guys like Maurice Spates. Yeah, they don't really have a Maurice Spates right now. Someone who can just come in and spread the court and shoot a jumper and get an easy
their
bucket.
Otto.
Yeah, kind of like that. Otto's a little bit better defender. You could rely on him for longer minutes. But and then it's Barbosa. You could even say Barbosa versus Poole. You'd probably take Poole for sure, because he's just more of a that version of Barbosa. Maybe the 5 years earlier, the Blur, when the Blur was really the Blur, then that against Jordan Poole this year is equal. But so you see what type of rosters that for Lacob to make that claim. It's a big claim. It's not something that he's going to just go, because it's not like the Warriors in his stead when he's been in charge or when he's owned the team. They've got 4 championships. So to say this team, which is 20-19, has the most talent or will by the end of the season, it's a big shot.
Yeah,
and he's a big shot guy.
Yeah,
it's a light years quote.
It is a light years quote. And to his point, like a lot of the guys from those teams we named, like that was their last year in the league. Like not many guys, Barbosa, I don't remember a team if he played after that, Spates, a couple other guys that
some of those guys got that extra 1-year deal just by being on the
but they were quickly out of the league. McAdoo, Festus, like I think from the talent perspective, Kuminga's in his second year. You look at all these young guys and what they could potentially be at some point. I was kind of with him in the beginning of the year. I was very excited about this roster, but I was very excited because of like the hypotheticals, not necessarily because we'd seen it. It was like, oh, Kuminga and Moses Moody jump. Oh, Wiseman's going to come in and just like be really good, and that was obviously not the case. And so I think I just liked this roster from a lot of hypothetical standpoints instead of actually like watching them mesh. But they've been looking good. So like, thank God he said that now and not, during that first road trip where it was completely awful. So,
all right, Klay Thompson scored 54 points on 3 days ago on Monday against the Hawks. He played a season high 45 minutes, almost 46 minutes, and he took 39 shots. His arm must have been sore after that game. But the reason why I bring that up is that was an all-time performance. It was crazy to watch. But if you look at the last 4 games, now we're talking Charlotte, we're talking Portland, we're talking Atlanta, and then last night against Detroit, his shooting percentages are starting to tick up. So previous to the Charlotte game, Memphis 8 for 25, the Knicks 5 for 12, Toronto 6 for 14, Philly 4 for 17, Milwaukee 6 for 16. So that whatever that 5 games or whatever span, he's probably shooting about mid 30%. But the last 4 games, 10 for 22, 11 for 22, 21 for 39. And last night, we thought he was shooting terribly, but he does end up 11 for 23, so not terribly. So he's shooting over 50% in these last 4 games, which bodes well, especially with Steph coming back, because then he'll get a little bit less of the attention defensively. Is Klay back?
Yeah, I'm with it. I think we saw the same tweet maybe where he's shooting like 50, 40, almost 90 since he was pointing at Dylan Brooks. Yeah, I mean, I think they talked about it on Plus Minus how he's been somewhat changing his shooting mechanisms, whether not necessarily changing because he has the most pure jump shot in the entire league, but he was just doing a little too much leaning. They said he was working on that with Ron Adams, and he's still kind of leaning. Like the shot he hit against the Pistons, it was a leaner. And it was cash, but I did notice at least in that Atlanta game that it felt like he was kind of going straight up and down, and if that was the easiest switch you had to do to be a 50, 40, 90 guy play at an all-star level, then sheesh, man, yeah, you're back.
So I think I agree with you, and I think some of it is because we went through this. Remember when Draymond yelled at him and he was supposed to be like, okay, I'm doing too much. And then he kind of went back again after he had like a nice little run. So maybe that's just what it's going to be. There's going to be some more inconsistency. But I think some of this has to do with Steph being out because he just feels more responsible.
Exactly.
For being a better player, not just scoring, just being an overall better contributor. You're seeing him cut to the basket more. You're seeing him hit guys on cuts. He's never really been a big time rebounder or anything, but just the flow of the offense. He seems to be less hunting and more really just trying to play make. And in his playmaking, some of that is shooting. Like that's how he makes plays, right? Is to find his shot. So I agree with you. I think that he is back. I don't know if he's going to be back to, 2018 Klay or 2019 Klay, but from what we've seen, this is about as good as he was, maybe even a little bit better than he was in the playoffs. So if he can get to where he was in the playoffs, like in the finals, I think that's a good version of Klay, and we're boding well for that as we hit midseason. So, what I was thinking about, because Steph plays next Friday, I wonder if we should try to go next Friday instead of our normal record date is Thursday night. But I wonder if we try and go next Friday. We may not be able to go right after the game because we may need some time hanging out with the fam and such and our significant others. But I wonder, might make some sense to go Friday after Steph returns if that is going to happen. All right. Let's talk about this game that we went to last night. Warriors, Detroit. It was the supposed to be the worst weather day in like historic like Bay Area as far as rain and wind. And I read a story that said, and there may be a loss of lives. And I was like, oh, it has to be the day that we're going. So I looked to possibly sell the tickets and maybe go Saturday. But it looked like a lot of people sort of had the same idea as us, and so I wasn't able to sell the tickets, and we went, and it was fine. We drove up, your brother and I. It was a little stormy on the way up. We got hit by a little bit of rain, but otherwise, it was a good time out. I don't think the Warriors played exceptionally well. I mean, how can you play exceptionally well and lose at home to the worst team in the NBA? But I don't know. We've been to Chase now a few times, and I like Chase. I know, oh, it's not like Oakland and all that. I like that building a lot. I really have a good time whenever we go watch a game at Chase.
I like where it's located most of all. Like I feel like it's more in the heart of the city. It's not in the heart of the city at all, but like just kind of more stuff to do around it instead of just connected to Oakland Coliseum, you know. I do like the location more. But yeah, I mean, Oracle is always going to have like the more ultra Oracle feels like more of the diehard Warrior fans, more culture. Whereas Chase Centers, you look at the first two rows and you won't see pigment in anyone's skin. You know, it's just all white people in the first couple rows. So, but it's still fun. Everyone's still cheering. I remember during the playoffs, it wasn't against the Nuggets that they were kind of getting on people for not being as loud, like during Game 5 or something. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think they ever got worried about that again. You see how people were coming out on the most historic rain day of all time against the Detroit Pistons and were as loud as they were.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see that for many teams, and so it feels reminiscent of Oracle in slight ways.
So I posted the Klay shot. So Klay hits a shot to tie
that was
game.
a better view. You got a better video than the broadcast did. Like,
Yeah.
that was perfectly taken.
So I got the video and I put it on the at BSPN shows Twitter feed. So if anyone wants to go and see our angle, and somebody replied and put their own video, and they were like on the
Court
floor.
side, and yours looked better.
Our angle was way better. But the reason why I said that is because when Klay hits that shot, you can see all the people in the first couple rows like losing their minds, like it was the NBA Finals.
Yeah,
like they were just
yeah,
going crazy. And I was like, wow, okay, this is so in some instances, I'm kind of like, come on, like this is not the game to do. But to some, that may be like the first game they ever been to live or something. So you see that, and that's really fun. Okay, so I asked you before this show, I said, come up with some things that you notice. Because one of the things about going to basketball games live, and I think this is like mostly just sports. Like if you go to 49er game, you get to see the whole field. You don't just get to see what the TV shows. And so I like going to live games because I like to see the off-ball stuff that you could see a lot better than on TV because they're focusing on the scoring and sometimes there's stuff going on. And I was really watching Draymond. Draymond was pretty frustrated last night. And I think some of it has to do with he's just not feeling 100%. His athleticism wasn't fantastic. But what were some of the things that you saw or that you noticed being there live that, maybe you're surprised or just maybe it was just like, oh, yeah, this is what I thought. And being there live proved that this is what's going on.
I almost have like the opposite outlook. I like watching the off-ball little stuff on my TV rather than being there and kind of maybe having a better view of it. But I almost feel like it's harder to understand, like if you take away a score, if you take away the score and you don't let the fans see that, like I don't know if I would have been able to say who was winning the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like it's kind of hard to see who's up, how much they're up. And you could look obviously, but just by looking at the game, I couldn't really tell. But yeah, I think I think if I was tasked to like write something about a game or like come up with all these points about the game, I think I'd prefer doing that watching on my couch than at the game. I think it's just fun being in the atmosphere when I go to the games, and that's mainly it for me, honestly. Or I think at the game, like the guys look bigger that you could tell they're like large human beings versus on TV everyone kind of looks like a not as large. Like Patrick Baldwin Jr. like looks like a very large person.
Okay, so here's things that I was sort of paying attention to, keeping an eye on. When the Warriors go small and they play teams who are big, they struggle to get rebounds in. And really, for Looney, it's positioning. Like the way that he gets rebounds is he positions himself really, really well. Because there's a couple where he's fending off one guy and he's grabbing the rebound with the other arm, and he's very smart about that. Draymond, I don't think he played very well against the bigs yesterday. I felt like both Duran and Stewart kind of got the better of him in a lot of situations. And like I said, maybe that has something to do with him. Just he's over. He played that long game, and doesn't look like he's moving well. And so he's not going to eat those guys alive all the time. But you think about it, you go, oh, young bigs playing against Draymond. Draymond's going to kill these guys, right? Like with IQ, everything. But he was frustrated, and some of that was Stewart. Like they got into that little mix right in the end, and both of them got the text. But it was right before that. I don't know how many possessions before, but it was right around.
I think I know which one you're gonna take.
Draymond boxed Stewart under the basket
off the court.
Yeah, like out of bounds, and so that meant that one of the other Warriors players needed to grab that rebound, and nobody went after the ball. So I think he was just mad. Like he was like, "Oh my God, I just created this opportunity for us, and nobody came back to team rebound." So
and not only did he create that opportunity, but did you see how like hard he had to work to create that opportunity?
Yeah.
Like that looked like one of the hardest things he ever had to do in his life. Like because Stewart's just way bigger, way stronger, and he was just able to. Because he's so good, he was just able to still do it, but it was not easy. So that makes it even more frustrating.
The other thing that I noticed is because the Warriors shoot a lot of 3-pointers, the defenses are out there on the perimeter. They are like not just the 3-point line, but it's like beyond. Like there were moments where Klay would get up a shot, and I was like, "How? Like you had no space to shoot it," and because he's a lot of it's because he's also very tall for a 2-guard. But yeah, those teams are guarding the Warriors so out there on the perimeter, which helps because then you see a lot of the backdoor cuts. That's how Draymond, is able to get a lot of the assists to the cutters and such. So that's where that stuff opens up. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And this third one is more of a validation for me than anything else, and it is about our friend Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole just gets destroyed by screens. I don't know if he hates them or his body hurts or what, but he sees a screen and he wants nothing to do with it. And thus, because he gives so much space to get around that screen, it just creates an easy opportunity for the other team if they use it to their advantage. He either moves out of the way or he gets blown up to the point of where he's out of position to help on anything. And I'm kind of wondering sometimes if he's trying to like create a foul there or something, but like just his over exaggeration, he just gets taken way out of the play. That is very apparent when you go live. And also sometimes his effort in help defense. Like there was a moment where, Bogdanovich was giving them hell yesterday. And he was doing this thing where he was just he was kind of backing down, but he was like hopping into it and seeing if they were going to stop him. And then if they didn't stop him, he just would go all the way, to the paint and then shoot a fadeaway. So Jordan's guy takes him to the corner, and Bogdanovich is kind of like near the box, and Jordan, like he just like sort of walked by Bogdanovich and just did like he kind of waved at him. I was just like, can you maybe go for a steal or can you maybe quick double and get back or something? But yeah, so I mean, we give him a little bit of a hard time because he is the guy who got paid, and he is the next guy, and we both really like him. But there are some parts of his game that are, he needs to improve on. And I think this is a giant learning first half for him. A little bit of a humbling in a sense, especially when it comes to the shooting and these dribbling plays. But I think it's going to be good for him overall. And we said this in the finals last year and in the playoffs. He just needs to toughen up. And he's a young dude and he's not built for it yet. And he will be built for it at some point. And sometimes it's just going to take him fighting through stuff to prove to himself that he can do it. Cause he's, I think Fitz and Kalena maybe go over and above to say how tough he is of a human, but he emotionally, he's definitely tough, right? Because of what he had to deal with in this offseason. So emotionally, he's a strong dude, and the physical piece of it, I'm sure it'll get there as well.
Are you gonna listen to the new Draymond pod?
No, what is on? I don't even know what he's potting about. It's so far off my radar right now.
I think so. I don't think he's dropped the podcast since the punch, and he just dropped one. And I think he talked about he recorded right after the punch, and then he listened back to it after, and he didn't like how it sounded. So I think I haven't listened to it, but that's like a tidbit I heard, on social media. But yeah, I don't listen to Draymond's podcast, but even I was like, I feel like he hasn't come out with the podcast. I haven't seen it on his social media. I haven't seen people talk about it. And yeah, he literally hasn't recorded or done anything since the punch.
That is, yeah. I mean, I don't know how that works for the contract he has with Volume. I'm sure they wanted all the pods now, right?
Exactly. Oh my God. They were, oh yeah.
But I mean, probably good for his mental health as well. Even in being the bully in that situation, he has to feel terrible, and staying away from the noise probably helped him and helped Tim just focus on basketball. And hopefully, the one thing that I want out of this, and maybe this has happened behind the scenes, and maybe me even wanting this is just a selfish basketball fan. I just want Draymond to just be like, I've apologized to Jordan, and he's accepted my apology, and Jordan to be like, Draymond's apologized, and I've like, maybe that can't happen, or maybe it has, and that's just behind closed doors, and that's fine. But that part of the story has not yet happened, right? Like I would have expected, because of how this was covered and because of how it happened, like there would have been something around that to just kind of kill the noise, because of that, everyone still talks about it. But I feel like if they would have come out and done that, that would have killed some of the noise.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's up to Jordan to, because I know when Draymond was talking to the media, he was saying like, it's not up for me to like apologize. Like I'm gonna show through actions, and but yeah, we haven't heard anything from Jordan, and I don't know if we ever will. Maybe if someone gets him behind a mic and he's like just won a championship and he's really drunk, he might say something. But yeah, I think their lockers are still right next to each other. They literally go on off together, kind of in the rotation. Like when we went to the Pistons game yesterday, they both came off together, so they're basically playing together for the majority of their minutes.
Yeah,
and there's been some practice footage where they're chopping it up. So I don't know if like they're 100% back, but it definitely feels like, yeah, like that's a story that's gonna slowly fade away unless Draymond just decides to keep talking about it on his podcast.
Okay, so just wanted to make mention also on I put that shot up on Twitter so you can see our angle. It's also on the Instagram account at BSPN Shows. We put it up as a reel, so it's out there, and people are seeing it and finding it and liking it. So that's really cool to see. Okay, so the outlook for these next few games. If we decide to record on Friday, I don't want Brian to make that decision. He's got to figure out his schedule, as do I. But if we come back on Friday, the Warriors will have played 3 games. They will have played the Magic on Saturday night. And this Magic game is more familiar to this Pistons game than I really want to know, right? Because the Warriors lose to the Pistons, and then they lose to the Magic. Yep. And now they lose to the Pistons again. And like they really need to beat the Magic. They cannot lose to this Orlando Magic team.
Yeah, the sucky thing is, it's not sucky because the Warriors should be beating these teams, but the scuffle between Killian Hayes and Mo Wagner that suspended like 8 people, the Warriors are missing all of those suspensions by like 1 game. Like Killian Hayes just made his return against the Warriors. When we're gonna have on the next game, all the suspended guys who came off the bench are back. Even Jalen Suggs might be back from a long injury. I think it's funny how the Warriors are just accidentally missing all these suspensions that could give them a favorable edge. But I've been really high on this Magic team, even though they haven't won that many games. I just kind of like how their roster set up. But I think I think that the Warriors just have to outvet them almost, and that's would be because the Magic have like so much talent on their roster.
I'm calling it right. I'm calling it right now. Jordan comeback game. He's had 2 rough games in a row, and that was after that awesome offensive display against Portland. So
Yeah,
I'm calling comeback game for Jordan.
Need it.
Okay, and then the Suns, which the
I'm
Suns.
telling the Warriors are going to kick their butt.
You think so?
I think so. I usually bet against the Suns too, and those like when we would do on the BAM pod, we would talk about a team that's maybe doing good or doing bad, and then we predict their next 5. And for some reason, all those teams always had the Suns in their next 5, and I just be like, nope, they're beating the Suns, and they always did. So I'm going with it again. Suns are missing Devin Booker. The Suns have lost like 4, or like they're like either 4 and 6 or like 3 of 11 in the last 15 or something bad. Like I think they're tied with the Warriors in record right now. Like they've been playing bad, so they're gonna come to chase. Ideally, Wiggins is going to be back. Maybe Kuminga. I don't know. But I would say that the Warriors are going to have their way in this game against the Suns.
So
You like them too much.
No, I don't. It's not that I like them. I just think that they match up against the Warriors really well. Like they do a lot of things that hurt the Warriors. But if they don't have Booker, that's a little bit of a different story. Bridges always harasses
awesome.
Steph. And so I imagine he's going to be harassing Jordan or Klay. And Jordan does not play good against a physical defender like Bridges. So he's going to have to be up to the task on that game.
Take away Jordan, then you have Klay and Wiggins. It's like another offensive
I think Wiggins
dimension.
Yeah, we need Wiggins to play strong. I don't know. I feel like they kind of need Kuminga for that game too, but I don't know if he's going to be back by then.
Yeah, DiVincenzo and Kuminga just keep switching off on Chris Paul and Wiggins. Like they're going to put him through hell, man. I'm ready.
All right, and then the Spurs and Steph is hopefully back by then, and really you need to beat the Spurs team too, even without Steph. So that should be a nice way to start that road trip. And the Bulls are struggling, but the Bulls are competing.
They are competing.
They've been competing big time. So that'll be
the Warriors match up well against the Bulls though, because they could just take away. They've been good at taking away DeRozan, and that's like kind of their main thing there. And they could take away Levine too. Like they could take away other teams' guards. I think they have a harder time taking away wings.
All right. I think we'll end it a little bit short here. But what do you have to do, or what do you guys have on the BAM coming up?
We're finally coming back from the damn Christmas break or the holiday break. Everyone got a football pod out today, and we're recording basketball on Sunday. Not really any crazy updates for the BAM. We just need to record.
I'm surprised we didn't hear any solo pods from you like Bill Simmons did the other day.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know how people talk to themselves.
It's hard. Doing a solo pod is really, really, really hard.
And it's not entertaining. Like Bill's like one of the only people I feel like I could listen to it and be like, okay, I might not turn this off. You know, like, and it's like I still don't even like totally enjoy it, but I think Bill's just Bill and he's like the GOAT at this stuff. So that's probably one of the only people. Like I think my mom was listening to some inspirational podcast and she turned it on and I was like, is there gonna be like another person that comes in and says something? It's like I can't listen to this guy for 40 minutes.
Yeah, so. I know. Okay, we'll be back either Thursday or Friday. We'll figure that out. It would be nice to come back after Steph and immediately talk about Steph. But yeah, that'll be it. Hopefully by the next time the Warriors will have won another 2 games at least out of
predict the 3 or predict the 4, put the Bulls in. I'm just gonna go 3-1.
Well, okay, so for the next 4 games you said?
Yeah.
I think I'll say I'll say 3. It depends if I think that they could beat the Suns.
See, mine is the Magic. I'm a little more worried about the Magic.
Yeah. Okay, I'll say 3-1 as well, but I do think they lose.
4-0 is realistic.
I do think they lose one of the next 2 games.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. We'll be back next week. And I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be going to any more live games anytime soon, but I hope to get back because that's a fun place to watch a game.
Yeah, we
All
should
right.
see if they play like the Rockets or something.
Yeah, no, I'm down. All right, for Bri, I'm Double G. We'll see you next week. Peace out.